Tansei, I'm Krisanachkite. Welcome to APTN National News. Last week, we brought you a story about a 16-year-old girl who was pinned to the ground by 6 security guards at a mall in BC after they alleged she had stolen from a store in the mall. APTN's Tina House went to the head office of the security company to get some answers. And a warning, some viewers may find some of this content disturbing.
It's been almost a week since 16-year-old Jane, who wishes not to be identified, went to the mall with a couple of friends to hang out. Jane says they went into the Victoria's Secret store.
We went in for like 2 seconds probably, and then we went outside, and then I was on my phone, and then we were walking out towards the entrance by Hudson's Bay, and the security guard came up to me and he started saying that I stole from Victoria's Secret, and I pulled out my phone and I started opening the large packet of my bag. I pulled out my phone and the security guard slapped my phone, and that's when it broke. I picked it up and it was broken, so I started yelling at him and I took a picture of him, kept taking pictures.
Jane's non-Indigenous friend then spat towards the guards, and then Jane did as well and took off running. Jane's mother confirmed this in an interview. Also, according to Jane, the guards chased her outside the mall and brought her back in. This video was shot by an onlooker and shared with Jane's family. It shows 6 security guards roughly taking Jane to the ground. Jane also claims that one of the female guards had a knee on the back of her neck and she couldn't breathe for about a minute. In a statement to APTN National News, Surrey RCMP said that they responded to a report of an assault on a security guard, but, quote, the suspect, who is a youth, was released at the scene to their guardian, unquote. The guards are employed by Paladin Security. We made several attempts to contact them through phone and email. We didn't get a response, so we went to their office. At first, a staff member said someone would speak to us, but that didn't happen. Instead, this week, Paladin Security emailed a statement. It reads in part, we are transparently working with Surrey Police on the events leading up to what is seen in the video and are conducting an internal investigation to ensure the response of our team aligns with our procedural expectations and training standards. As this is an active police investigation, we will have no further comment. Jane's family is now seeking legal counsel and plans to pursue a lawsuit. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Members of a First Nation community in northwestern Ontario are ready to escalate their call for action to address rising crime and addiction rates. Leadership in Pic-Mobert recently declared a state of emergency due to gang activity, which they say is due to a lack of policing resources. And they're demanding action from the federal and provincial governments. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
The chief of Nipmuc Nishnabeg, otherwise known as Pic-Mobert, says the community is at a crisis point following a series of violent incidents stemming from the unchecked presence of organized crime, which leadership says is due to inadequate policing resources.
Community members are acting on behalf of these organized crimes. They're doing a lot of these violent crimes to other community members.
People are seeing that window and that gap of lawlessness that leads to an environment where people are taking advantage of that situation, mainly organized crime gangs, where they're exploiting the situation that we have a lack in policing services, such that I'd go so far to say is that we are becoming a warehouse for the drug epidemic for the region.
Chief Quiswa says the violent incidents coupled with delayed emergency response has people fearing for their safety, even in their own homes.
A lot of our people don't feel safe, particularly our elders. I've had conversations with community members indicating that they don't feel safe and they're worried at night and they're worried about the mental health of their children.
The state of emergency was a topic of discussion in the Ontario legislature this week as NDP MP Saul Mamakwa brought it up during question period.
The lack of police presence and delays in emergency response has created a crisis. To the Premier, will you commit today to answer Nipmuc and Nishnabeg specific calls to action to bring the First Nation out of state emergency?
Mr. Speaker, when the federal government comes to the table and antes up more money to do the right thing, Ontario will do it as well.
They use jurisdiction as an excuse not to do anything. And they outright said that when I asked that during question period, that's what they is. We're going to wait for the feds, see what they do.
However, Nipmusagamig Nishnabeg leadership says they won't wait for jurisdictional squabbles to be resolved, that they're prepared to increase the pressure on the government.
We will disrupt the economy. We will look at solutions such as demonstrations as roadblocks, protests. If we need to go that far, we're prepared to do so because lives are at risk. And if the provincial and federal government do not respond, we'll go to those measures if we need to.
Chief Quiswa and CEO Moses were in Toronto earlier this week for a scheduled meeting with Ontario cabinet ministers to discuss how to bring an end to the state of emergency. However, that meeting was cancelled at the last minute. Mike McDonald, APTN National News.
The family of a man who has been missing for more than 14 months and last seen in Edmonton is speaking out this week. They're asking anyone to come forward who has information in locating 41-year-old Michael Thomas. Last year on September 11th, Michael Thomas was last seen in Edmonton and was believed to be on his way to the White Avenue area. His family reported him missing a month later, shortly after he stopped contacting his children. Michael Thomas is from the Saulteaux First Nation near North Battleford, Saskatchewan. He is 5'8" with a thin build, has short black hair and a large Z tattoo on the front of his neck. If anyone has information on his whereabouts, you are asked to contact the Edmonton Police Service or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Tamara Piwapaskonias is Thomas's former partner.
Help us bring him home. If you know anything, even anonymously, let somebody know. My daughter searches Facebook, searches YouTube videos on, Tent City, Hastings, just in hopes that she might see somebody that looks like her dad. And what if it's him? We can go over there. But school is the last thing on their minds, and they're only 15 and 16, and they were doing good up until this.
The Yukon is considering on increasing security in the north. That story when we return. Plus, our APTN News Montreal reporter tells us what she'll be working on over the weekend in Nunavik in northern Quebec. Here's a preview.
I'm Savannah Craig, and I'll be heading up to Kangiksuyak, where Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Gary Anandasangari, will be giving a historic apology over the RCMP's slaughter of Inuit sled dogs between the 1950s and the 1970s. This policy resulted in pushing the semi-nomadic community into a sedentary lifestyle and taking away part of their autonomy. Tune in Monday for the full report I'll have on APTN National News.
Welcome back. The Yukon government is exploring the feasibility of opening an Arctic and Northern Security Center in the Yukon, something it says would be the first of its kind in Canada. The federal and Yukon governments are investing around $375,000 over the next 17 months into a feasibility project for the center. The center would be called the Canadian Institute for Arctic Security. Its goal would be to strengthen regional security and to contribute to Canada's broader Arctic and Northern sovereignty priorities. The announcement follows the release of a report by the Yukon Arctic Advisory Council earlier this week. The report found the territory could benefit from proactive planning on matters of Arctic security and defense. Ranj Pillay is Premier of Yukon.
We're incredibly excited about this. It hasn't happened in this country, and it gets to happen here. And when you think about what that means, it's about folks coming to the Yukon, both nationally and globally, coming here to have the conversation.
In response to the growing number of homeless people and limited shelter capacity in Yellowknife, the territorial government is introducing what it calls an on-the-land camp. A non-governmental organization will be in charge and provide on-site programming and 24/7 emergency services. The camp on the outskirts of the city will house between 20 and 30 people in dorm-style cabins. For more on the initiative, we're joined by Robert Tordiff, the Executive Director of Integration Systems for the Government of the Northwest Territories. Robert, thanks so much for being with us. My first question for you today is, how did this idea for the On the Land camp come to be?
Well, the On the Land camp was the one option that we had considered for a period of time. Most of the work leading up to this involved a group of non-government organizations, the City of Yellowknife and other partners. We had been working on efforts to mitigate the impact of an encampment in the downtown core in Yellowknife. That quickly became a conversation about the needs for all unhoused people. We looked at all of the options within the city and in near proximity to the city, and at the end of the day, we found that a camp like this on a temporary basis would help us serve the needs during the winter months.
Robert, can you tell us about the camp, and including the accommodations and services that will be provided?
Okay. Yeah, the camp, it is a fair distance from the city. It's about 60 kilometers down Ingraham Trail. It's an established camp already that has hosted winter activities in the past, primarily for youth at risk. So there are a number of cabins. They're insulated, they're heated by wood stove. It's dorm-style sleeping, about 7 or so people in one cabin and 12 people per cabin in the others. We have a kitchen cabin as well, where there's television and internet via Starlink. There's heated toilets and showers as well, and an area for folks to gather. So the camp's fairly well established. It's been running for a number of years.
Has there been a lot of interest and demand for this camp in acquiring a spot?
Sure. Well, as of Monday, we had 42 applicants. We have a screening process. We have 5 that have been out at the camps over the weekend. We have another intake coming up. People will go out either tomorrow or Friday, and there'll be weekly intakes from here on in.
And Robert, can you tell us what the cost of the camp is versus the cost of not trying this idea?
Well, cost can be defined in a couple of ways. Financially, the overall cost of the camp's about $642,000. And in comparison to other services, it sounds expensive at first, but when you consider all of the services that are provided, the meals, the showers and whatnot, it actually comes in fairly close to the cost of running something in town when you consider the fact that we're 60 kilometers out of town. The cost of not doing the camp, well, there really aren't any alternatives to address the, in the time frame we have, to address the shortage of shelter space in Yellowknife. So we would have people sleeping outdoors, and by way of example, last night was minus 23 degrees in Yellowknife.
Yeah, definitely dangerous out there when the temperatures go down. If successful, Robert, do you think this is a model other cities across the country could replicate?
Well, I think these types of camps have been offered previously to varying degrees of success. I'm not sure how it would work for other cities. Best practice is always that works in the environment which is tried. We'll examine this. We're happy to share our experiences with other folks who may be interested.
Robert, that's all the time we have. We thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Great, thank you.
It's one of the darkest chapters in Australian history. Thousands of First Nations men and boys sent to a prison island to suffer or die in horrific circumstances. This is the legacy of Rottnest Island, now a popular tourist destination off the Perth coast. Descendants of those imprisoned there have come together to commemorate the island's traumatic past. This story is from our friends at National Indigenous Television in Australia.
They've come from all corners of WA in their hundreds for a week of ceremony and commemoration.
Welcome to Wadyanup.
The pristine beauty of Rottnest Island, also known as Wadyanup, and its unique wildlife experience belies its traumatic past.
They brought our men from all over the state down here, chains on boats, and just dragged them out here. And they all died on the island.
From 1838 to 1931, the island was a prison that held up to 4,000 Aboriginal men and boys. More than 360 people are buried on the island, making it the largest Aboriginal deaths in custody site in Australia. A week of private ceremonies for the descendants of those sent here culminated in the Wodjemup Wirran Commemoration Day, and this from the WA Premier.
As the Premier of Western Australia, on behalf of the people of Western Australia, I say, we are sorry.
The Commemoration Day is seen as a significant milestone towards healing and truth-telling.
A lot of the issues we have today started back then, and that's the story that a lot of Australians don't understand. And this is why truth-telling is so important.
Launched in 2020, the Wodjemup project is led by a coalition of elders who have spent years travelling across the state to make it happen.
It was a process to go right around, speak to them. We gave ourselves nearly 5 years. We finished it in 3 and a bit. And so today is the culmination of that process.
There are now plans to make Wodjemup Wirran Commemoration Day a yearly event. Karen Cox, NITV News.
We now want to tell you about this week's web poll questions. Our first question over on our website, we ask, how confident are you in the check and balances when it comes to medical procedures at hospitals in your area? Your answers are very confident, somewhat confident, not confident at all, or unsure. Our second question is, do you feel you've ever been racially profiled while shopping? Yes, no, or unsure. And the third question we ask is, do you think body-worn cameras will improve trust between the RCMP and Indigenous peoples? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Have your say at www.aptnnews.ca. A teacher from Balcarres, Saskatchewan has been recognized with a Governor General Award for teaching. That interview when we come back. St. John's 3, Charlottetown 8. Ney -4, La Grande River 4. Saguenay 5, Val-d'Or 5. Toronto 6, Sarnia 4. 4 in Wawa, Thunder Bay 5. Puckatawagan -12, Thompson -9. -5 in Gimli, Dauphin -6. -9 in Regina, Saskatoon -13. -10 in Stony Rapids, Meadow Lake -14. -20 in High Level, -14 in Peace River. -10 in Edmonton, Medicine Hat -7. 10 in Dauphinot, Kamloops 2. -19 in Dees Lake, Smithers -6. Old Crow -15, Rock River -19. -12 in Fort Simpson, Wrigley -14. Sax Harbor -19, Colville Lake -22. Cambridge Bay -23, Baker Lake -27. And Iqaluit -1, Igloolik -20. Canada's National History Society recently announced the names for this year's teachers and other community members who have demonstrated innovative and impactful approaches to teaching history in Canada. One of those people is Michelle Schwab, who is a high school teacher at Balcarres Community School in Saskatchewan. She has just received the Governor General's History Award for doing a recent magazine project that included her high school students and residential school survivors and elders from the nearby First Nations of Papixies, Okanese, Star Blanket, and Little Black Bear. She joins us now from Balcarres. Michelle, thank you so much for chatting with me today. First off, congratulations on receiving the Governor General's History Award for Excellence in Teaching. What was your reaction when you found out you were chosen for this award?
I was very overwhelmed. When I work with my students, it's never really about the accolades. It's about students having authentic learning experiences. So to actually be nominated and then find out that you've won the award is kind of surreal.
That's great. Can you talk to me about the important work you have been doing with your high school students to receive this award? You have been including local Indigenous elders and residential school survivors in the way that you teach for years. But I understand this latest project was a magazine?
Yeah, we interviewed our local Katayak and knowledge carriers. My students were able to connect with their cookums, their mushums, aunties, uncles. They chose a series of topics that they thought were relevant for people to learn about from a firsthand account of history, and conducted interviews, and then from the interviews created articles that they felt were relevant and provided information, both just information wise and persuasive.
That's great. What were some of the reactions from the students and staff after hearing from the people in the community who have these lived experiences?
The students were able to make really strong connections with people in the community. A lot of my students heard stories that they had never heard before. My students also really now feel that they have an obligation as the next generation of knowledge carriers. Former Chief Marianne Daywalker-Pelche, during her interview, she tasked the students with the question, now that you know the stories, what is your responsibility with them? And I thought that was very relevant in terms of oral tradition, keeping stories alive, and allowing people to have the truth behind truth and reconciliation from a very strong firsthand perspective.
These students, your previous students and your current students, all have this new knowledge and this new history they know of. Do you see them as future leaders down the road?
100%. I feel that doing these projects and some of the other things that we do at our school allow students to have a strong opportunity to become critical thinkers, and also have knowledge that will allow them to dispel the stereotypes and to be able to make people understand that Indigenous people suffer from the intergenerational effects of residential schools. However, this generation is the generation that is going to push forward, and the generation that is going to lead us towards more reconciliation.
Finally, Michelle, what is your message to other teachers out there who want to do reconciliation work in the classroom but don't know where to start?
I think the biggest thing you have to do is build a relationship. That relationship could be with another teacher, that relationship could be with an elder, a knowledge carrier, a Katayak. It could even just be to reach out to someone that you know has that connection. I don't really believe that what I do is unique. It's just that you have to put a lot of heart and time and effort into doing it, and the result is something that you will never forget.
Michelle Schwab is a high school teacher with Balcarres Community School in Saskatchewan who just received a Governor General Award for teaching. Thank you, Michelle, for chatting with us.
Thanks, Chris, and have a good day.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Friday, November 22nd. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho, thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Exe.